I'm so excited to be able to talk about this topic. This is a topic that I've been passionate about for years. I've spent a lot of time writing about it and working with my students on it. And one of the reasons why is based on a meeting I had with my teacher when I was a doctoral student. He took me out to school. He took me out to dinner when I was finishing my degree. And as we were eating, he said to me, "You're going to be very surprised at how many bad trumpet teachers there are in America." I looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean?" Because that was not my impression, right? And he said, "You're going to find that they're not bad people, but they're not giving their students everything that they need to succeed, right?" He said they only give the students skill and knowledge in how to play, but you have to teach your student how to play, how to get a job, and how to keep a job. And those second two are entirely different skill sets from what we traditionally focus on in music schools. And boy, I sat with that for years, thinking about it. What was he talking about? What I finally decided he was talking about was the fact that getting a job is about professional presentation and professional development. Building yourself up in a way so that you're ready to get that job and you're prepared to get that job. And the third one, how to keep a job, that goes into interpersonal communication and interpersonal relationships and how to work together effectively. And so there's a whole wide variety of topics that we can focus in on in career development. And so I've really become interested in that, and I spend a lot of time thinking about it and then writing about it too. It certainly depends on what stage you are, as a student. It'll be different for a high school student, a pre-college student here at the College of Music, than it will be for a doctoral level student. And the things that you should be thinking about or preparing for are maybe slightly different. If we're talking about a bachelor's degree student, at that level, I think that there are a lot of things that we should be focusing on related to that first element of learning how to play the instrument. But at the same time, you should be focusing in on how do I present myself publicly, right? And therein we start digging into the specifics of, have you created a resume yet, right? And a resume, is there anything that you have to put on the resume?
Exactly.
When I was a student, I had a resume, and I put performing achievements on my resume. But then I got to my graduate school, and I started to realize that there's so much more that people are expecting from me as a professional, especially if my career trajectory is to become a college teacher, for example. So I got a hold of 2 or 3 super resumes, which are what we call curriculum vitae, curriculum vitas, CVs for short. And basically, this is not just a snapshot of your performing skill, but it is your Bible of everything you've done in your entire life, right?
Yes.
For this area. And so I just started listing down things that I've seen on other people's CVs, recordings, articles written, presentations given. And I just realized I had nothing to put on any of those categories. So I just said, well, let's try to find something I can do that I can put into each of these categories, and at least I'll have one. And so that was one of the things that started me off on this process of portfolio building, right? You have to know what you don't know, or you have to know what you haven't done yet, right?
Yes.
So that to me is a good place to start. A self-inventory is perhaps a really good tool. a self-inventory and they have, and if you Google self-inventory, right, you'll find a dozen different examples of what that means. But it might be called self-assessment. But a self-inventory is where you're going down and you're listing things in your particular field, like for your playing self-inventory and your professional skills self-inventory, your communication skills self-inventory, so that you can start to identify, well, I do this pretty well, or I've done this, or I've created this resume, or I've created a website for me to showcase my skills. And then you realize that there's a lot that you haven't done yet, and you start making lists. You start making lists, and those lists give you ideas, and then you carry forward with them. So that to me is the beginning of profile building.
Yeah, so very, very interesting that you said about you started when you were only a student. So resume is not just something that you do after you graduated. It should be something that you start doing when were a student. So you should start early. So and to keep the inventory of what you have been doing or what did you achieve, right? So that's very important to start doing that early on.
Best lesson I remember learning early on was from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
She said, if you didn't write it down, it never happened.
Yes, yeah.
And I started thinking about that, and I carry a writing utensil with me everywhere I go to jot things down.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with resume, I do it with my daily life, my to-do list, just making sure that I'm keeping track and keeping records of things. If you don't keep records, you're going to lose out on your history, and you won't be able to put it down into document form when you're ready to do that.
Yes, I had that experience by myself. I regretted so much that I didn't start to do a resume when I was a student, because there's so many performances that I did, and those were good performances that I did with teachers, faculties, and I could have written those in my resume, but I can't remember all of them. So this is if I got to watch this video, I would have done it. Yeah. So
as a high school student, maybe you're creating your very first resume.
Yes.
And it might just have like 3 or 4 simple areas, like education and major teachers and professional or performance opportunities. Maybe not even professional at that point. And then honors and awards. And that's it.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're working. And then you get a hold of some other categories, and then you start adding them. And if they're empty, they're empty. Because this is not necessarily for you to give to someone else. It's for you to look at yourself and say, what do I want to do? How do I want to achieve? Going as a corollary to the paper document work that's part of professional development. There are an inherent set of skills that you should be looking at too. Some people call them soft skills. You heard that term before, soft skills. Hard skills meaning I can do this physically, or I can do, I have knowledge or ability to do. Soft skills, the power of words, learning how to become comfortable talking to people, and even more important, learning how to become comfortable listening to people. Those kind of soft skills are as important, if not perhaps even more important than other things that we do. As a trumpet player, I'm good. I have a good awareness of my skill level in relation to the rest of the world. As a communicator, I'm above average, and I had to work at that. I wasn't when I was in high school. I was shy, and I know you're sitting there thinking, "There's no way that this guy who I've known, was ever shy." It's true. I was very soft-spoken. I was self-conscious. I was overweight, and I didn't talk to people very much. I had to learn how to speak because I got put in situations where there was no choice. Especially when I came to the College of Music, I was told, "You are the MC, go." And suddenly you're like, "Oh, I better."
Yeah.
But what I discovered was that the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and it's just like with performing, right? How do we use it? Well, as a student, I think you're using it as a record, as a documentary record of what you've done. so that you can prepare for the job searches of the future, right? Creating a website is the modern day portfolio, perhaps. It is the place for you to put all of your accomplishments. And so look at other people's websites who are performing artists and see what they have there. Just as important as the paper is what you're presenting to the world in that sphere. And the next stage is the social media presence too, right? Students today live so much of their lives in social media, but I think they don't take into account how other people view them through that lens of social media. You know, the things that you put on social media should be things that you would never be embarrassed about if it was presented at your your award ceremony in 30 years. And that's something that I have to get students to think about as well. Don't use social media as a outlet for being cathartic or for venting or for giving your emotion. So many students, I'm sad, on social media, on Facebook. And I was like, I bring them in, I said, no one cares. They care, but they don't care in that sphere. Especially when you're going to be working in a professional presentation job, right? Where you're presenting yourself, you're presenting the image of yourself to the public. Make sure that you start cultivating that image from the student age and putting things that make you look professional or look like you're working on the road to being a professional. And save your venting or your discussions or your emotions for your friends after school in person.
Yes.
That's the place to do that.
That's a very smart way of exploiting social medias and online world to promote yourself, to build your online portfolio. That's very interesting. So, is there anything you want to talk about? What employers want to see in our resume or CV or our portfolio online?
That's when you look at resumes, and here at the college, for many years, I was tasked with going through applications that we would receive for new teachers to come in. And the more you go through applications, you start to realize the biggest thing is don't make mistakes, right? Because when you have 7 to 10 really qualified people, it's not really a matter of who's the best, it's who can I eliminate from this group. And even the small details can be a thing that will get you moved out of consideration for a job, right? What's an example of that? Well, calling someone by the wrong name on paper or in person, boy, that'll get you moved off of the list. I had 1 or 2 examples where they spelled my name wrong in the job search committee, and I was like, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put you over here, because you're looking for anything that will distinguish people who have consideration for what they're doing. They're taking the time to make sure things are right and proper. And so taking time, the attention to details is a really, really important one. And so when you're making your resume or working on your CV or working on your website, take your time with it. Make sure it's quality. Make sure things are correctly presented so that you don't lose out on an opportunity. Honestly, I think it changes over time. So, for instance, as a high school student, you're putting activities and things that you're doing at the secondary school level. When you graduate to the next level, it's generally a good idea to take out the previous level's work from your resume, because as you move to that next level, people are going to want to see what you're doing currently until you achieve the final level of being a professional. So, for instance, going from high school to university, when you're a university student, you want to create a university student resume. Here's my education as a university student. Here's my performing experience as a university student. Here's my awards or honors as a university student. Don't put the high school information into the university resume because you graduated out of it. There's a reason we say it's the word graduate. It means to rise above, right? So you've risen to the next level. And so we want to make sure that the resume that we're collecting is the resume for where we are now, not where we were. As a university student going into graduate school, that university student resume will collect a sizable amount of information. Student ensemble participation, or university ensembles that you participate in. But once you go from being a student to being a professional, you're going to want to take the student experience out, except for key things like major teachers or your place of study. And you're going to want to start substituting it with your professional level experience.
So very important that you should update your resume from time to time. Every time
I do it monthly.
Monthly?
I do it
that's
every
incredible.
single month. I open up my resume, I check each section. Have I done anything here? Have I not? Oh, no. Usually the answer is no. No. Yes, oh yeah, I did that concert, that chamber concert. Let me put that in my concerts section, because a CV has everything, right?
Yes.
A resume should only probably be 1 or 2 pages long, 2 at the maximum. But a curriculum vitae, it grows as you go through your career. My current curriculum vitae, the CV, is 35 pages long right now.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I don't like printing it out. I like sending it as a document, a Word document, because it's too many trees cut down to print it out.
Yes, and you should always custom make your resume every time you apply for a job.
Sure.
Right?
There are sections in my resume that wouldn't be appropriate for a certain job. Now, I haven't applied for a job in many years because I'm happy where I am and what I'm doing. If I was going to apply for a job, you're going to be looking at the specific job that you're applying for, see what they're looking for. And you're going to make sure that the sections of your resume or your CV are matching what they're looking for. If they are looking for someone who has a secondary skill set in teaching music theory, you want to be really sure that you've got that in your CV, so that they can draw attention to it and say, oh, this person matches what we're looking for. But if you have a big section in there on, for instance, technology skill, and there's nothing written in the resume about it, you might think, well, maybe I don't need to put that in there because that's not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Job descriptions are usually very specific about what they want, and you have to pay attention to that. It does, and even more than that, you should be very strategic about it too. Some people use their personal Facebook account as a professional display. Other people keep their personal account only for friends and family and have a separate public page where they present their professional materials. You have to make those decisions for yourself, but regardless of that, always make sure that that Facebook and Twitter or Instagram is a no drama zone.
Yes,
keep the drama out of it. The emotional, oh my God, I'm so upset. Now, leave that for afterwards.
Yes. So we have CVs, we have resume, we have social media that we can use as a professional display for ourselves. And so those are very good things.
Those are good starting points too.
Yes.
And it's great to have these kind of chances to discuss these things, and I look forward to watching you interview more people so I can learn more too. Because I write everything down, and I'm really excited to see what's going to come next.
Thank you so much, Bowman.
My pleasure.